With any review, especially with one this late, I stop to think about whether I can contribute something new to the conversation that hasn't already been said by hundreds of other YouTubers, and it's difficult with something as popular as the iPhone 13 Pro. But coming from Android, I think I've had quite a surprising experience with this, to the point where now I actually consider buying more iPhones in the future. But let's talk about it. This is NOISO, and this is the iPhone 13 Pro review. I tried to find my best Sierra Blue shirt, but I don't have anything quite this boring. I won't stop to talk about all the details that I'm sure you're already aware of. Instead, I'll just talk about my own experience, starting with the design, which I don't like at all. It might be a personal preference, but while the visual design of the iPhone 13 Pro looks great to me, the ergonomic design and the way it feels in my hand is just really uncomfortable when I compare it to just about any other phone on the market. I wish Apple didn't go with this hard, rough-edged design language that they're now bringing to their iPads as well. And I wish they instead opted for something curvier that kind of fit a little bit better in my hands. But I can understand why some people prefer this design over former designs. On the color, I think this is a very refined, kind of reined-in color that doesn't really stand out from the crowd, which might be what some people like, but I just really want a flashier color, more similar to what we have on the iPhone 13 or a lot of Android phones like my Galaxy Z Flip. The display's 120Hz refresh rate is great because we've been waiting for Apple to do it for years, but even now I frankly really couldn't tell the difference between this and the iPhone 12. That might just be me. Some people actually notice the smoothness, but I don't think this really makes a big difference from former models. What's also new is the notch, which is less wide and taller, I guess, but honestly, I still don't like it at all. When I'm browsing most content, like sending messages, emails, browsing social media, or anything like that, it really doesn't get in my way. Even vertical video doesn't get in the way. But when I switch it to horizontal to watch video, I do notice it. It makes the screen small enough to the point where I don't want to watch content on this. Comparatively, I would opt for most Android devices for watching content and not feel obligated to switch to a tablet. Whereas with this, I always feel obligated to switch to the iPad. Performance on the 13 Pro is still super quick to the point where I never really noticed any slowdowns on it, which isn't surprising considering I've had the same experience with most modern iPhones, but also the battery life on this is absurdly good. I was really skeptical when Apple said the battery life on this is going to be so much better, but it is a so much better experience for me than prior iPhones. Being able to have 30% battery life at lunchtime and not have to worry about plugging it in because you know it's going to make it through the night is really, really appreciated. That's just a nice feeling. It's something that I can't say about every phone, especially older iPhones. I wish all phones could be just like this. Now, I admit I've never really liked iOS, but I have warmed up to it over the last year. The experience for me has gotten a little bit more familiar to the point where I'm not too worried about being able to get to where I need to go, even if it's not the perfect experience. What really drags me down though is these new focus modes that Apple added with the last operating system update. I've never felt so tech illiterate than when I tried to set up the focus modes. Maybe with a couple hours of diligence, I'd be able to get to a point where they're exactly what I expect. But unfortunately, a lot of times when I set up a focus mode or try and set up Do Not Disturb, it's because I need it to happen right then and I don't have the time for setup. So, for example, I wanted to set it into sleep mode before bed. And so instead of just turning on Do Not Disturb, which I would have done, I tried out the new sleep mode. And it quickly drove me down this pathway of telling it how often I sleep, what hours I typically want it to sleep for. And for me, I don't really have a consistent schedule to the point where I want to. And so I just said, why don't you just be in Do Not Disturb from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m.? That's a safe bet for me. And then the next Saturday morning, I woke up to an alarm at 6 a.m. I was furious. If I were any more tired, I probably would have thrown the phone across the room. I instead set up my own sleep focus and then it ended up working just fine, except for then I tried setting up Do Not Disturb on my iPad that I keep in my office and I don't want it to go off in the middle of the day. And then a couple hours later, I realized I wasn't getting any messages, notifications, or Outlook emails on my iPhone, only to realize that the Do Not Disturb setting was synced across those two devices. In concept, these might be great features, but for an operating system that prides itself on its intuitiveness and accessibility, these just seem a little bit too advanced and complicated for kind of the average Joe, or even me who doesn't really want to spend several hours setting up my phone. Instead, I just want it to work. What do Android fans need to know about iOS? Well, obviously it's going to be less customizable in the long term, but there are a lot of abilities to customize it to an extent. Once you get over that, if you can get over that, the experience is really not all that bad, and there are a lot of features that are there that aren't there on Android. And once you get used to them, then they actually can become pretty integral to your life. Regardless, the iPhone 13 Pro engrossed me more into the Apple ecosystem than I've ever been before. An Apple Watch, AirPods, Apple TV, an iPad, a MacBook Air, all of it together actually truly was impressive, the way that they all kind of synchronized together. I think this is because Apple actually makes it worse to be interoperable with other products, but I'll go into further detail about that in the future. The good news is, if you do choose to buy all those products, then you will find a benefit from them, which is why I've grown to love the Apple Watch and the AirPods and even the Apple TV. Now, one of the big reasons I went for the iPhone 13 Pro and not the 13 is because of the camera. The extra telephoto camera was appealing to me, and as someone who has slowly gotten more and more likely to start taking videos, largely because of the iPhone 13 Pro, I appreciate having the versatility of a third camera, which obviously is available on most Android phones at this point. Pictures out of this phone were absolutely incredible and some of the best iPhone pictures that I've ever seen before. But I really still don't like the kind of color profile that Apple puts on most photos. Starting with just plain daylight images, Apple would often mute the colors of a scene to make it seem more kind of a normal situation. For example, on a cloudy, overcast day, taking a picture in the rain, I want to have that kind of cold, dark experience, and Apple just totally gets rid of it and makes it look like a partly cloudy day. Or in like a dark, warmly lit, kind of comforting restaurant, it instead makes it look like, my basic kitchen setup. It just doesn't really give the sort of emotion that I can get out of other phones by just taking a picture. Now, of course, Apple added different camera modes to enable a more punchier or a more HDR look, but I found that those camera modes don't really close the gap, even though they kind of draw parallels to the way that Samsung or Google handles their pictures. Also, honestly, I'm just a kind of a point and shoot person, and I don't want to go into some camera setting and figure out the ideal picture for me. Instead, I want to be able to take the phone out of the box, take a picture, and love it. Now, when it comes to video, on the other hand, this is absolutely the king of the hill. I love shooting video on this phone. Sometimes I don't really feel obligated to have a real camera to shoot B-roll. Instead, I can just get some quick B-roll shots out of the iPhone 13 Pro and be super happy with the results. I actually got so used to shooting video on this phone that now I try and use other phones specifically for video, expecting better results, only to be disappointed again. I hope that other manufacturers can catch up. More so than ever before, I really enjoyed using the iPhone 13 Pro, to the point where even if tomorrow someone told me and I can't use Android phones anymore and I'm stuck with just one iPhone 13 Pro, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I started to appreciate more and more just how Apple products are built to work together, and it's something that's very much inspiring Google today with their Better Together program. Apple's command over what your experience will be when using the iPhone still kind of bothers me, and I wish they allowed people to be a little bit more flexible in their choices, whether it be adding applications to the bottom of the screen or making more custom widgets or anything along those lines. It still feels a little bit locked down, but if you can appreciate and work under those constraints, then your experience of using the iPhone will be a good experience. Now, ironically, because of my great experience with the iPhone 13 Pro, I will be getting rid of it because I think there are a lot of other iPhones that I now have a better appreciation for. And so I'm going to start trying some of those, hoping to get just as nearly good experience as I did on the iPhone 13 Pro. Thank you for watching InnoISO. I hope you liked this review of the iPhone 13 Pro. If you did, be sure to let me know down in the comments and tell me if you're an Apple fan, an Android fan, or somewhere in between. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.